Hello everyone, welcome to the February challenge on our Discord server, where all month we are going to practice making sentences using countable and uncountable nouns. And in this video, I'm going to break it down and teach you all about this important grammar topic in English. So let's jump right in and get started. And the first thing I want to tell you about is what nouns are. This is just a very quick review. It's kind of basic, but just to make sure that we're all on the same page, that we're all comfortable with the vocabulary that we'll be using this month, we need to talk about nouns. So nouns are just a part of speech. We call them a part of speech, just like verbs and adjectives and adverbs. And a noun simply is just a thing or a person or a place. A person, place, or thing is a noun. Now, we can divide nouns into many different categories, but for this month, we are focusing on two different kinds of nouns: countable nouns and uncountable nouns. So let's start by talking about countable nouns. We have countable nouns up here first, and simply, these are just nouns that we can count, okay? Things that we can count. So things like a dog, a computer, a book, a pencil, okay? These are all items that we can count, right? Maybe you have 3 pet dogs. So you could say this is dog 1, this is dog 2, this is dog 3, and it's very easy for you to count those. Notice with countable nouns, there are always singular forms, like the word dog, that is singular, right? Only one, but also there's a plural form. And the most common way to make a plural noun in English is just to add the S on the ending. Sometimes, depending on the spelling, we have to change that a little bit, add ES or IES or something like that, but still it's that S sound at the end of the noun. Okay, that is the plural form. So a countable noun can always have a plural form. Now, the more difficult category is uncountable nouns. Uncountable nouns, or some people call these non-count nouns. And an uncountable noun is just a thing that cannot be counted. So I have some examples on the screen here: water, air, advice, peace, love, happiness. Okay, they're all great things. I love all of these things, but we can't count them, right? Think about the air that we are breathing right now. We're breathing in the air, out the air, but can you count that? You can't say 1 air, 2 airs, 3 airs, 4 airs, right? It doesn't make any sense at all. Air is just all around us and we can't count it. Same with water, right? We consider water to be like one unit of something. Water is just water. There's no plural form. We can't say waters, right? I want to drink 2 waters. Doesn't make sense. We could just say I want to drink 2 glasses of water or 2 cups of water. You see, when we want to count an uncountable noun like that, we need to use a different kind of counting word. We'll get into that in just a moment, but for now, I just want you to know that there are certain nouns in English that you can't count. These are often liquids, gases, materials, maybe a concept or an idea where it just doesn't make sense to count them. Next up, I want to introduce a word to you that you might not be familiar with. The word is quantifier. Quantifier, and this is just another grammar term that refers to words in English that tell us some information about how much or how little of something there is. So there are many different quantifiers in English, but some of the most common ones are like the ones that I have on the screen here: much, many, some, few, less. Okay, when I'm talking about these kinds of words, they are called quantifiers. So if you hear me use this word quantifier, now you know what it means. And one thing that's a little bit confusing is that sometimes we use certain quantifiers with countable nouns and different quantifiers with uncountable nouns. And then there are some quantifiers that work with both kinds of nouns. And I'm going to go into that in a bit more detail right now. First, let's talk about many versus much. We use many with countable nouns and much with uncountable nouns. This is a very strict rule in English. So many with countable nouns, I have an example sentence on the screen here. I picked many apples today. Went to the orchard, the apple tree farm, and I picked some apples. I picked many apples. Apples is a countable noun. It's in its plural form, right? More than one with the S ending, apples. And so we must use many with countable nouns like this. The next one, much, we use with uncountable nouns. And I have the example sentence on the screen. There's too much sugar in this coffee. It's too sweet. It's gross. Okay, sugar, we think of as just being like one unit. Of course, there are many individual grains of sugar, but it's too small to count each one, right? So we use it as an uncountable noun, sugar. And so there's too much sugar. We need to use much with sugar because sugar is a non-countable, uncountable noun. And also, guys, you'll notice that there's no S on the end, right? We don't say sugars, we just say sugar. There's too much sugar. So many with countable nouns, much with uncountable nouns. Next up, we have the opposite of much and many, and that is less and fewer. We use fewer with countable nouns and less with uncountable nouns. Let's check out the example sentences that are on the screen here. The first one says, I read fewer books these days. I read fewer books these days. Maybe in the past you read many, many books, and now you don't have as much time, you're busier, and so it's difficult to read books. I read fewer books these days. So books is a countable noun. We can count 1 book, 2 books, 3 books, etc. So fewer books. The next example sentence with less says, I have less time now than before. So maybe a similar situation. You had more free time in the past, and now you are busier than in the past. You have less free time than before. Okay, time is an uncountable noun. As I mentioned, many concepts and ideas are uncountable according to English grammar. And I know it gets confusing because we can count hours and minutes and seconds, but time as a whole, we consider an uncountable noun. So we have to use less. I have less time now than before. Some other common quantifiers include a or an and some. A, an, or some. So a, an, this is just a determiner that we use with countable nouns, right? An apple, a chair. Of course, we have to say an whenever our noun starts with kind of vowel sound is the standard basic rule. And then if it starts with a consonant like chair, then we use a chair, okay? An apple, a chair. It's just to make the pronunciation smooth and easy, right? So we only use a or an with countable nouns. You'll never use it with an uncountable noun. You would never say, I have a happiness in my life. You would just say, there's happiness in my life, or there's some happiness in my life. Something like that would be much more natural because happiness is an uncountable noun, and so we can't use a or an with those kinds of nouns. Now, I have some good news. Some, on the other hand, we can use with both countable nouns and uncountable nouns, okay? So we could say some apples. I went shopping today and I bought some apples. Or you could say some water. I drank some water just a few minutes ago. So it works with both. And of course, some means an amount, a quantity that's not specified. It's unspecific. Let's move on next to some common mistakes that many English learners make when they are trying to make sentences with countable and uncountable nouns, especially these ones. The uncountable ones are, I think, the most difficult because many people don't know that they are uncountable. And to an extent, this is just trial and error. Spending a lot of time listening to native speakers speak English, spending a lot of time reading English, you're going to notice patterns and be able to pick up on these and be able to learn them. But there's also some shortcuts I can tell you directly to maybe save you some time. So let's get right to it. There's a long list, and there are more than these, but here are some of the most frequent errors that English learners make with this grammar. So first up is advice. Okay, advice is uncountable. We cannot say advices in English. If we want to say a kind of plural version of it, we need to use it with a counter word, a piece of advice or a few pieces of advice, something like that. But you cannot say advices like, I talked to my best friend and he told me some advices. Never. Okay, always singular, always uncountable. Next, news. Okay, I watch the news on TV. News is always just in this form as news. It's a unique word. Just memorize it. Don't try to change it ever. It's always going to stay as news. Okay, next one is hair. I'm not an expert about hair, as you can see. But if you want to count hair, it is uncountable. We consider hair to be just like one unit. And if we wanted to count individual ones, we'd have to say a strand of hair, a piece of hair. Okay, hair is uncountable. Next, money. Again, very confusing. We can count dollars, we can count cents, we can't count money. It is uncountable. So we have to say an amount of money or a sum of money. We need to use a counter expression like that. Next, furniture. Furniture is a category, and because it's a category, it can't be counted. It is uncountable. So again, we need to use a counting expression with it, like a piece of furniture, something like that. Luggage. We can never say luggages in English. It's not pluralized in that way. We need to use a counting expression with it. We need to say a piece of luggage or pieces of luggage. We can count suitcases, one suitcase, two suitcases, but luggage, because it's the category, again, it's the overall category. And often in English, the overall category is an uncountable noun. So luggage is the category, but suitcase, bags, purses, backpacks, okay, those things that fall under that main category of luggage, those can all be counted, but the category itself, no, it's uncountable. So we have to use, like I said, a piece of luggage or two pieces of luggage, this counting expression, if we want to refer to luggage in that way. Next up, information. Okay, information is uncountable. We can never say informations. We can't pluralize it like that. You will never see that in English. If we want to count it, we need to say a piece of information. Next up is knowledge, and we can't pluralize knowledge. It is an uncountable noun. We can't say knowledges. It doesn't exist in the English language. We would usually just say some knowledge or a bit of knowledge, something like that. And then finally, we have two interesting ones. TV series, and we can say there are several TV series I like, or I like a TV series. Okay, you have some flexibility there, but because of the pronunciation issue, we don't really say TV series. Okay, there are two TV series I don't like. It's just way too difficult to pronounce, so you can just keep it in the singular, even if you're talking about more than one. And then social media as well, we just always use it as social media. I'm a member of several different social media communities, or I like using social media. I hate using social media. It's always going to stay as social media. We'll never pluralize it with an S. Finally, before I let you go, some good news. It's always good to end with some good news, right? There are several quantifiers that you can use with both countable and uncountable nouns. So if you can't remember, should I use this quantifier with count nouns or uncountable nouns? I don't know. I can't remember. Just use one of these, okay? They work for everyone. Some, you could say, some water, some apples. Works for both. Any, no, a lot of, lots of, enough. Okay. In fact, a lot of and lots of are very natural. I use them all the time in my daily English, many, many times each day. And yeah, it's really great to use a lot of or lots of. It will make you sound really natural. And in fact, I think even more natural than using many or much, a lot or lots of. Some other really common quantifying phrases that you will hear, and I use these all the time in my speaking as well. Tons of, or a ton of. Loads of, or a load of. That's more UK English. Maybe if you listen to an episode with Anna, you'll hear her say that. Also, here's another UK phrase, heaps of, or I guess you could even say a heap of as well, and plenty of. So these are some really common, more spoken quantifiers that we use all the time in our daily English. I personally use tons of and a ton of. And again, the good news about these quantifiers is we can use them with count nouns and non-count nouns. It doesn't matter. You could say something like, I had a ton of fun last weekend, and fun is an uncountable noun, right? Or you could say, I ate a ton of apples last weekend. And here, of course, a ton of just means a huge amount, right? So I guess, yeah, I love apples because I'm using them a lot as an example for this lesson. Anyways, guys, that's a quick run through about nouns, uncountable nouns, and countable nouns. I hope that you were able to learn something useful, and let's practice all month in February using this grammar. And I think by the end of the month, you'll be a natural at using this grammar. So good luck with the challenge, everyone. I look forward to seeing your sentences and your practice all month. Please take care, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.